Today, I specifically want to talk to those of you who work in the Human Resources Department, or you may call it the People Department, Employee Experience, Talent Department. I'll just use the term Human Resources in this video just to ensure we're all on the same page. But I want to talk to you about your communications efforts. And some of you may be lucky enough to have a communications expert that you can work with on your communications to the employees, but some of you may not all the time or maybe on your own. So I want to share with you in this video 5 don'ts, 5 things not to do and what to do instead in order to be successful with your HR communications. And I have specifically worked with HR departments for years, for over 10 years, on their employee communications and employee engagement efforts. And I've worked with organizations of 15,000, mid-sized companies, as well as startups. So I understand various cultures. So I think that these tips will be helpful for everybody. Tip number 1 is to remember that it's not all in the mind. One of my favorite questions to ask to kick off communications efforts is, what do you want employees to think, do, and feel as a result of your communications efforts? And when we're talking about benefits enrollment or the managers needing to understand the new compensation tracking system, it's so easy to think about what we want people to, what they need to do and by when. And we can often forget that everything we're doing affects how people feel. And how employees feel is what affects their employee engagement, whether or not they feel valued, included, motivated, inspired, dedicated to support the mission of the organization. So it's critical as part of the communication process to not only think about what we want them to know and do, but how we want them to feel as a part of our efforts. And it will affect maybe the technologies that you use and certainly the key messages. Tip 2 is not to think of your employee population as one large group, but to recognize the many cultures that you have in your organization. Or maybe you've got a project in which it's really helpful for the managers to be informed first, because they're going to be a key resource for their own team members. Or what about the executive group? Is there something that they need to do, think, or feel as a result of your communication efforts? And perhaps they're a priority or they can support you in specific ways. But look across the organization and identify the different groups that may need different resources, different attention, different key messages as part of your communications plan. Tip 3 is not to view your employee communications as one-way communications, but to look for all opportunities to have two-way communication. Whether you're looking at the employee engagement data, seeing what perceptions they have about the topic that you're communicating about, what challenges exist, what successes exist that you can leverage as part of your communications efforts. Or maybe specific communications initiatives would benefit from having a focus group with employees and getting their feedback and getting their questions ahead of time. Do you have social media in your organization or online user groups in which there can be exchanges and questions and answers about specific topics? But always look for those two-way tools that can help with your communication efforts. Tip 4 is to recognize that it's not all up to you, and to look for people in the organization's managers and employees that can maybe even lead or be advocates or ambassadors for the HR topic that you're working on. Maybe there's a manager who created unique career paths in his or her organization that weren't managerial career paths, and others in the organization could really use those. Or you have an employee who really made changes in his or her life as a result of one of your wellness programs. Look for opportunities really within your organization to have employees even lead these efforts. Do you have a culture committee? Do you have employee resource groups? And really look to folks outside of HR to champion and lead efforts that you might be involved with. Tip 5 is not to look at it as one big communication plan that needs to be implemented, but instead look for milestones. Look at it iteratively. Are there points in the communication plan and in your project plan that you can touch base with your audience, with the managers, with the employees, get their feedback, and have it inform your communications plan moving forward, or even the program itself? I'm Morgan Quist, and I'm your Thrival Guide. I partner with people to shift from surviving to thriving in their careers. Most often, I work with leaders and organizations to help them increase their self-awareness and focus on self-leadership, as well as how to be more effective communicators and coaches with their team members. So feel free to leave any questions or comments below this video. If you're interested in the usual template that I use for my communications plans, I'd be happy to share that too. So just leave me a comment about that. And I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow my LinkedIn company page for weekly roadmaps on how to thrive. And I look forward to seeing you next time.